Gender-based violence is an act of violence that results in or is likely to result in physical, sexual, or psychological harm or suffering to women plus men. According to a study done in 2023, South Africa is considered to be the rape capital of the world, with 10,818 rape cases reported in the first quarter of 2022. The rate at which women are likely to be killed by intimate partners in this country is 5 times higher than the global average. Domestic violence is the most common form of gender-based violence in South Africa. 1 in 5 women will experience physical or psychological abuse from a partner during her lifetime, while 1 in 7 women will experience such violence from a family member. Statistics show that 1 in 3 men have experienced abuse and domestic violence. GBV has a long-lasting impact. It affects physical, psychological, and sexual health, as well as a boy or man's self-esteem and their ability to work effectively and make decisions, particularly around fertility and reproductive health issues. Sonke Gender Justice has a mission and a vision to see a world in which women, children, and men enjoy equitable, caring, healthy, and happy relationships that contribute to the development of gender, just, and democratic society.
So take me step by step. For instance, if one is a female in an abusive relationship, and they approach you, firstly, how does one approach and find you? And then take me step by step, how would you assist? I know that each case is different. Step by step, how do you assist this person? She's not working, she's in an abusive relationship, she has children, she doesn't have a home to go back to. How would you assist that woman? We're speaking about a woman here.
Okay, so how we work as Sonke, we don't work in silos, we work in partnership with other organizations, but also we have a component where we have community action teams. These are members of community that are linked to our work, members of community who are more passionate about justice in their community, and some of them, they also focus on gender-based violence. And these community individuals and organizations, they will bring up cases to us because we meet with them on a monthly basis. We have stakeholder meetings, and in those stakeholder meetings you get other government departments like your NPA, your SAPS, your Department of Social Development. So they will bring these cases to us, and then we look at the case. And then in a space where we need to refer, it's easy to refer when you are part of stakeholders. Call it Gender-Based Violence Forum. Then when the case needs attention from NPA, which mostly, for instance, I'll make it an example about the case in Soweto, where we work in Deep Kloof. We are very close to the Tutuzela Care Center, which is a one-stop facility for rape survivors. And we have a very close relationship. So it's easy for us to pick up a call and talk to them, but also use the necessary processes in terms of referring the case to them. Same applies with the social development within the city of Joburg. We usually use their offices. So we have a relationship with social workers, but also we have a database of spaces of safety for women, you know, like Kaile Temba and others, where we can be referring this person to. We also work with CBOs, because the community-based organizations are the most critical ones, because they have very close relationships with the people, and women trust them most, and they speak their language, they understand their challenges, they understand their background, and they have time to be able to sit and listen to the person. And we also trained them on what we call containment training, where we know that if the survivor comes, they are able to contain the survivor. They're not providing psychosocial support in order for this person to be safe and feel safe and be referred to the relevant spaces. So this is how we deal with cases. As you say, it's also differ from case to case. If it's about children, we've got teddy bear clinic, but also the Tutuzela Care Center do cater for children. And social services, there's social welfare as well, that we work with them very close. So what I can say is it's very helpful to be in a network of service providers that are looking at cases.
And then we all come together and find a solution.
We come together on a monthly basis to make follow-up on what is happening about cases, but what is more important to understand is that the approach needs to be survivor-centered. We don't take decisions for survivors. They direct us what they want us to do, and then we follow that up. For instance, now it was a bit difficult for us to lose a case and not be able to appeal because why? The survivor said, no, I'm fine, I'm enough. So we need to respect that. So our approach is survivor-centered.
Of course, you can't decide for people.
You cannot take power from them, which has already been taken by the perpetrator.
And do we have centers that cater or take care of men and boys as well, in the same way that we have centers for women and children?
There are centers, but there are not many. There are very few. And then we also use the very same process of referring. For instance, City Bed Clinic, they have a component where they work with boys, who are in conflict with the law. And then they are able to place them in centers where it's necessary. The same applies to men as well.
So we need to pick up our feet or socks and create spaces that are safe for men as well. Just tell us a bit of a background about Sonke. When did it start? How did it start? Why did it start? Who started it?
Sonke started in 2016. It was started by 3 people, 2 males, 1 female. And the passion, I think, that they had, you could see our work that it was given birth by people who are passionate about the work. So they were passionate about issues of human rights, but also there was a study that was done in Soweto, asking men, how do they feel about these issues of abusing women and killing of women? And in that study, most of the men who responded to it, they were not happy about the situation, but they say we don't know what to do, to be able and be part of the solution. And that's where we started our flagship program that was called One Man Can. It's One Man Can prevent gender-based violence, can prevent HIV, because it was also during that high level of HIV infection rates. So that One Man Can was like, if one man can be able to take a stand and say, I'm not going to be abusive, I'm going to prevent gender-based violence, I'm going to support the survivors of gender-based violence. And that led to us developing a number of tools, to empower men to be able to be part of the prevention space in gender-based violence. One of the tools that I really like is a 10-point tool that shows a man how to support the survivors. The fact that as a man, what is important, you need to believe them. You also need to listen to them. You need not to take power from them. Let the survivor lead the process, and so that 10 points assists men to be part of the solution. We also share that with our participants in the Safe Ride campaign, which focuses on the taxi industry, because it is male dominated. It has its own stories. So we had a partnership, in fact we still have a partnership with Santaco. We've trained their leaders, we've trained some of the taxi drivers, we developed material for them and stickers, because we know some of the stickers on the taxi and our taxis are very derogative to women. So we created positive messages with them. We've branded taxis and making sure that we're creating that safe space. Because of funding, somehow the program is still struggling to reach as many taxi spaces as possible, but we have planted that seed. And you find that it's impacted a lot of the men within the taxi industry, because when you talk about, I'm reminded of an incident that happened at Bree,
when this young lady, she was wearing a short skirt, I'm sure you know about it. And then bayamkhumula. Uyabo ukuthi leyo mindset ivelaphi.
Yeah.
So we need to get rid of that mindset. So you can just
so there is a change, and even if a change is not that huge. But there is willingness, to be honest, from their side, because
to listen.
To also participate. Like one of the things they shared with us, we have offices in each and every taxi rank. If we can collaborate, Nina, you capacitate us, and then Tina, we implement. You make material available for us, we make engagement. So that also led the Tini, we have dialogues within taxi ranks. We also did a partnership with JAZ, the Department of Women and Children and Persons with Disability, to go to KZN and have those sessions, but also have sessions Nama owners who are women in the taxi industry, because they are also experiencing a lot of violence from their counterparts. When their husbands are dead and killed, then they are vulnerable. They are taken advantage of. So that's how we work with them.
That's great work. So do you go out to communities to teach us about our rights? What are the rights of young girls and boys and men and women, on the ground, on foot? Do you have programs that do that?
Yeah, we do. We do have those programs. And, one thing that we want to elevate is that in South Africa, everybody has the rights. This perception that women's rights are more important to government, women are more protected, and it's not true. Everybody in South Africa has a right. The challenge is women are more vulnerable and they are at risk. Like, for instance, if we listened to the Minister of Police giving us crime stats, to say 969 women were killed in South Africa in 3 months, meaning 300 women are dying every month. Then a month is 30 days. Meaning 30 women are dying in a day, and most of them they die in the hands of their partners, people that say I love you. So that is why we are elevating the work around prevention of women, and we know how women and girls are killed in South Africa. They are brutally killed. Some researchers are saying women who live in South Africa are far much worse compared exposed to danger compared to those who are living in conflict zones.
Wow.
Maybe to be in Burundi, for me, it's safer than being in South Africa, So that is the challenge, that people, they don't understand that we all have rights. It's just that the rights of women are violated and women are killed brutally. So that is why we are focusing on saying we need to build a safer South Africa for women and children.
So what do you think went wrong? Why do you think there's so much gender-based violence in our country?
Some, engagements are saying our community is a traumatized community because of our previous experiences, because of apartheid. We know violence that is related to apartheid. However, we still have very harmful and toxic social, religious, cultural beliefs and practices that perpetuate gender-based violence in our community. And guess where those things are happening? They're happening in our homes. They are happening in our churches. They are happening in our public spaces when you have izimbizo Inkosi zethu. But also, if you link this with the crime stats, a lot of sexual violence is taking place in our homes. There's so minimal when you compare that with what is happening in the community and taverns and by the stranger. It says most of these cases is at our homes, and even outside our home, it is done by the people that we know. People that are close to us. So until we deal with that, then we are unable to deal with issues of gender-based violence. Until men and boys are holding each other accountable, the abomalume, abomkhulekaya, obhuti, omzala, if abonomunye umzala abuse umntwana ekhaya, and it's painful because umntwana who has been abused ekhaya, who experienced this sexual violence for a number of years.
It like follows them somehow.
But
like
even the same perpetrator, I'm abused once.
We are over the
years. We have one partner that we are kind of engaging with and building capacity in Limpopo. Cases of incest
arrive.
Number of them. It was a shock to me, to say, how do people who work in this space cope psychologically? If you have 10 cases of incest, and it's been normalized in that community, it's not something that people are amazed of. They know about it. And we hear of a girl who has to run away from home and come to Joburg, and knowing no one, but just wanted a safe space because her own home was not safe for her. Her own community was not safe for her. She had to run away. Who knows whether she's on the streets today?
And then we judge people when we see them on the streets. When aphindele ekhaya ufunani lana kanti asazi ukuthi background yakhe ithini. And also to families, because we've heard of stories that are just being told out there ukuthi the child is being molested, let's say by the father. And then the mother says, "Ayibo, thula wena, sizodlala."
Like for instance, this material, it talks about issues of child marriages. People think issue of child marriage doesn't happen in South Africa. It does. When you go to Twalwa, and you look at this 14-year-old child who is now made a wife, forcefully raped on a daily basis, expected to do all the house chores. A fragile 14-year-old.
There's no education now.
And there is community around here. In other cases, you find out that parents are also involved because of poverty. They want lembuzi or lengo from this family, but the life of this child has been shattered.
Which also leads to abortions, and then sometimes backdoor abortions, and then sometimes death. Which means this is not just about sexual abuse. It's more, and it's something that stays with someone for the rest of their lives.
And substance abuse, take drugs to cope, take alcohol to cope, and then we call them names when we see them drunk, and we see them all over the show taking drugs and stuff. Then we judge them, but we don't know their story.
We don't know their story. So it means as a community, as a nation, we need to look at ourselves as well and ask ourselves, what are we doing about the situation?
And maybe the child, we know maybe the child is a lesbian. Mauzo Twala, a lesbian child. This child doesn't identify as a woman. And you understand the trauma that you're taking this child to. And we know that we've got a very high rate of killings of lesbian women who are killed and dumped in the doors of their parents just because they are lesbian. And men will come and talk about issues of corrective rape, which is very wrong. So the LGBTI community as well, we need to be able to say, when we talk about issues of gender-based violence, let's not talk about cis women only, but also look at these other, women, because as women we are diverse. We
are human beings.
We are human beings, and we got women who are migrants. One of the constable told us that we've got so much number of women who are migrants, cases of rape that are not followed up because when we go to those spaces we can't find those. And the trend is most of South African men, they target the migrant women because they know their cases will go nowhere. One, this person is not documented. Two, this person is not in one space because they're looking for security, they're looking for jobs. today is in Joburg, he hears that in Pretoria there's an opportunity, then she goes there, the police will come, she has moved. You know, so we have those very vulnerable groups that we sometimes not talk about and don't pay attention. And for them it's difficult to access services because of these xenophobic attacks and ideas that some of our officials have. So our group in Cape Town, the community action teams, they've got the Refugee Health and Rights Program, where some of them are qualified, you know, health professionals. They will go to the clinic and we partner with them. They also assist in terms of language, because also language might be a barrier for one to receive services.
Do you find that survivors in general, whether migrants or I'm going to say South Africans in this situation, know where to find help? So when someone has been raped or is in an abusive relationship or something, like, do you think we really know where to go? Do we have that information?
Most of them know. Because in our program, where there are Thuthuzela care centers, you will ask questions to ordinary community members, mostly women. Do you know where the Thuthuzela care center is? And they don't. And it's just across the road. You know, and we developed a radio drama to popularize Thuthuzela care centers in the community radio stations, so that people must know about it. But it's not all of them who listens to the radio. But in general, some women don't know where to go for services, and that is why we have these community action teams. We don't have them everywhere, but where they are, we encourage them to educate communities. The CBOs need to have a sort of a referral list to say this is where you can go. The other thing that assists, it's what the social development is having, the green doors. There are people who are opening their homes as a home of safety for a short period of time. If the woman is experiencing any kind of violence, they will come here. Then they feel safe, then we refer them to the relevant space and give them information. But there is still a lot to be done.
And do our clinics have that same type of information to give? So say a woman has been beaten or raped, she goes to a clinic and then the clinic can refer her to a center?
Mostly they don't. Mostly they don't, and they're supposed to. In fact, in police stations, they are supposed to have that list. It's a must. It's a regulation. But we know the failure that is there, you know, and people don't have information. It's even difficult to talk to an official and say, where is the police station? They will tell you Hambosbeke.
Yeah, because I'm reminded of this case that happened, I think it was this year, 2023, where this young lady was abducted and raped over, I think, a weekend. She managed to escape and she went to a police station, weak as she was and bleeding. When she got there, they chased her away to say, go back to the clinic. And on her way to the clinic, she passed away on the... So... we need to find a way to have these both organizations work and assist with GPV.
And the clinic know that we've got the FCS. These are trained GPV police officers. They've got cars. The nurse was supposed just to make a call and say, guys, I have this person. They were supposed to come pick up this and put them in a space. In police station, we've got what we call victim empowerment offices, where this kind of a comprehensive services are provided. They just should have taken her there, then that's all. But then she was at the clinic, she was supposed to be treated, evidence be taken, and then put at rest, and then after that they follow up with the case. Poor service provision for survivors.
Yeah, no, and sometimes which leads to us not wanting to go to those spaces because we're like, So looking on annual, I'm going to say statistics, or firstly looking at the COVID era, and then after that on a yearly basis, do you find that gender-based violence has increased, or it's stabilized, or it's or what are your takes?
I think during COVID, it it did increase, even if the state doesn't give us a clear indication. Because you think of, you are in the closed space, forced to be in that space with your perpetrator.
Yeah.
And what would happen? We talked about that a high number of sexual violence is happening in our home. You ask yourself what happened to children during that process, during COVID. What happened to elderly women? Because in Soweto and Eastern Cape, we get a number of cases of our gogo who are being raped.
Yes.
And the one gogo who was on the media who said, "Can you please find the perpetrator before I die?" You know?
How sad.
Then you ask yourself, what happened during COVID?
Yeah.
And the sad part about the cases of gender-based violence, the reports tell us that 50% of cases of GBVs are not reported. The reason being, the very same service providers. 2, families not believing them. Stigma around rape. Lack of resources. Some of the people are not privileged as we are in urban areas. Some of them has to go like 4 hours just to report the case, not to even get the services. When then they will stay and not report. And you ask yourself, what happens to those people? Because they're supposed to report the case, suppose, in inverted commas, within 72 hours.
Okay.
So that they can get the post-exposure prophylaxis to prevent HIV infection, pregnancy, STI, and so on and so on. But they also need psychosocial support.
Yes.
You know, they need somebody who's going to listen and say, "I believe you." You know, then you can take another step forward. But most of women in South Africa, they can't approach.
And you speak about stigma. So stigma around rape, stigma around violence. When uyaphi beze bekurape uyaphi wena ugqokele lesiketi lesi wena uhlalele naye kushaya uyabo. How do we remove that stigma so that people can come forward and report their cases and the situations that they are facing?
We need to deal firstly with our traditional and religious beliefs and practices. You take a young girl in a church who's pregnant, probably raped. What do they do with this young girl? They put her there at the back of the church, take her out of the choir, take her out of any leadership position. Go and sit there at the back, because why? You are dirty. They don't know, why am I pregnant? When I had a case of a girl in a church who had 2 kids, raped by the pastor, who always come and being accommodated at her home. She didn't have anywhere to go, and nobody believed her until such time that we had a platform to talk about this. And then she came to me and said, "Mama, you know what? You were talking about me."
Why do you think we don't believe the victims or survivors?
It's because of how we are socialized. But what we have also mentioned, it's not that we don't believe them. We kind of like bargain. You know,
what can I lose?
What can I lose? Is this man's salary, food? Some women are vulnerable, to be honest, because now this man is a perpetrator. I've got 8 kids. Do I have to allow my kids to die of hunger, or allow this happen? And I always say, when we talk about with women who are mothers to the survivors, I don't think there would be a mother who would allow their child to be abused and be okay. They are also affected psychologically, emotionally. They are done, they are dead. So our approach to them must be very, very careful, that we are dealing with an already, you know, traumatized person. Some of them, they are depressed already. You know, I know that legally they are supposed to report the cases. And if they don't report the cases, they're also perpetrators of the same thing. You know, so as we deal with them as criminals, but also we need to consider the fact that this is a woman who went through this every day, waking up in the morning, looking at this child, and not knowing, is she going to be raped again? So those are some of the things. Culturally, we have ukuhlolwa. And this young woman is being raped. You wonder what happens when these other girls are wearing their white stuff and the other young women could not. Why? Because there was a story where I've listened to Inkosi FM, they were talking about it, and I liked the approach. Yeah, this woman who called these young women and say, what happened to you? You know, and walked through this journey with these young women. But how many young women get that opportunity? So some of our cultural, religious practices makes it difficult for survivors to really report cases
and come forth. So, just as a parting message, what would you say to someone that is violating someone or abusing someone out there, whether a woman or a man? Firstly, and just your message to someone that is in an abusive relationship. What would be your messages to both?
To the perpetrator, I just want to say it is a crime. It's a violation of somebody's rights, and you know the law will take its course, because now we know that most of the legislation have been amended to protect mostly children and women, and the law should take its course. And as Sonke Gender Justice, we make sure that survivors are provided with necessary information to be able to know their rights, know where to report, where to get services. And to the survivors, it's that we know it's not an easy thing to report. It takes a lot, but they need to understand that they have a right not to report the case and open the case, but they can report and tell their stories to someone closer to them, someone at the service station, whether it's a substation or it's a clinic or a Tutuzela care center. There are benefits of reporting, as difficult as it is. As I've said, that at least if you report within 72 hours, you are able to get this post-exposure prophylaxis, trying to prevent you to being infected, to get pregnant and getting sexual infections. And then the other thing, it's also important to get psychosocial support, just to be listened and provided care and support. And there are people who are doing that. There are a number of organizations in South Africa that are there. There is also shelters. In the space where you are, it's not safe. There are shelters where you can go and spend some time just to gather yourself. Even if you are working or not working, those shelters are free, so people can be able to access them.
Okay, so how do we get a hold of you? Someone is in this relationship and they want assistance, and we know that you work with different stakeholders. How do we get a hold of you?
Sonke, we do have our website, and I know it's not accessible to everyone. Not everyone has internet connection or data. But also we have our telephone line, which is 011-339-3589. Then we can be able to refer you to different stakeholders. But also in our website, we usually put the list of service providers,
that you can go to.
But I would encourage people to really know their community-based organizations. Those organizations, honestly, they work very hard and make time to listen to people, so we can make use of them as well.
We must know our surroundings.
We need to know our surroundings, and we need to demand police stations to give us that list, because it is an obligation for them to have that list.
So when in doubt, go to a police station or a clinic.
And in the police station, ask for the Victim Empowerment Office.
Victim Empowerment Office.
Then you are directed to the right people, rather than being in the front line, where some of them are not even trained to deal with these cases.
Okay. Thank you so much for the work that you do. I know that you do a lot of work. So what is in the future for Sonke as we close? Or is it a secret?
No, it's not a secret. We are continuing to work, for gender justice and making sure that survivors are getting justice and getting services. However, we will continue to capacitate individuals, communities, government on the issues of gender-based violence. We also do capacity building with the media. We've developed the media tool on reporting on gender-based violence. It's on our website. But part of our programs, we make sure that there is an element of media training, because you need to know how to report, how to even engage with the survivor, because sometimes the media personnel, they re-traumatize the survivors, way of asking them questions and digging. One element that I'm very adamant about when they want to talk to the survivor, do we have a psychosocial component? Because you cannot trigger things and leave this wound up. You reopen a wound that was about to be healed, and then you want to ask questions, and then you leave it, and then you are gone. You got your story. That's not right. So I always say, tell us if you have the psychosocial component. After your interview, you don't tell us to refer to our service providers. You put that in place and say, we have this organization that we deal with, and if this person is referred to that organization, then they will get support. Or we've got a social worker that we are dealing with, or a psychologist that we are dealing with, that is being contracted by our media company to be able to address the after effects of our interview, because the survivor,
makes sense.
It's been triggered, and we don't force survivors to tell their stories. If we say to you we don't have, it's not because there are no survivors, but it's because there are no survivors who want to tell their stories. So we wait for them to tell us, I would like to tell my story.
Wonderful. But thank you for the good work that you're doing. We really appreciate it. We see you, and we know that as communities we'll do better. We hope that we'll do better, and we've learned a lot from you as well. So continue doing the great work that you're doing.
Thank you for the interview as well.
Thank you for the time.
Hopefully your numbers will increase and more people be reached.
Please, so that they learn. Thank you so much.
Thank you.